Good evening, world. I'm a little under the weather today. Yeah, somehow I have COVID again? Like, this is the third time, and I did get the vaccine and the booster. Yeah. And I don't get it. Like, no one was sick that I know of at that party I went to of 4 people. Oh, well. Anyway. So, instead of doing my usual business, I decided that I would start a new book tonight. I was going to be doing book reviews from now on instead of read-alongs and like critical readings, just because I can't stand to be. There's not always a lot to say about every single book, but I just read the preface of The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I was thinking, ooh, there's a little bit of something to dig into here. This is an online free PDF copy that you could get yourself if you don't feel like going to your library. And it is also the favorite book of both of my best friends. So I'm going to reread the preface and see what there is to be gleaned from the mind of Mr. Wilde. Heard the name before. Like, what is he famous for? Let me type that in. What is Oscar Wilde famous for? Irish poet. Oh, is he the guy who did the Ode to Haggis? Alright, so he was like one of the finest literary peoples to live. I mean, depending on how long you're willing to extend the list. But I think, just judging by what I'm seeing by the first page of Google, he is no slouch. I don't think that any literary critic would argue too strongly against that. And I just want to know if he wrote the Ode to Haggis. Nope, it was written by someone Burns. Haggis is a savory pudding containing sheep's pluck mixed with onion, oatmeal, suet, and spices and salt. So, really, a rich man's turkey stuffing. Around my neighborhood, there are lots of turkeys this time of year. And it's always nice to see them waddling together as a family. Like a more friendly version of geese, due to their more limited mobility and how funny their walk is. Not to say that a goose's walk isn't also amusing. All right. The artist's preface. Yeah. Remember back in the day, I set up those nice little scenes with candles and all the rest during the readings. I'm not doing that. And so, let's see. Well, this is more like an audio thing than a visual thing anyway. So I guess in the meantime, here you've got my face to look at. During the spring of 1884, Oscar Wilde was often in the studio. One of my sitters was a young gentleman of such peculiar beauty that his friends had nicknamed him the Radiant Youth. Each afternoon, Wilde watched the work advance, enchanting us, meanwhile, with brilliant talk, until, at last, the portrait was finished, and its original had gone his ways, rejoicing, without doubt, to be at liberty. Now, the beauty of Dorian, so this is a made-up name for the Radiant Youth, was that of a kind which depends on color and expression for its charm. His hair was bright and wavy. The ruddiness of health suffused his cheeks. His eyes sparkled with wholesome fun, good humor, and high thoughts. He was the sort of boy who makes the world seem jolly even when the east wind blows. Goodness and merriment radiated from him visibly. The darkest room appeared to glow and brighten when he entered it. "What a pity such a glorious creature would ever grow old," sighed Wilde. "Yes, it is indeed," said I. "How delightful it would be if Dorian could remain exactly as he is, while the portrait aged and withered in his stead. I wish it might be so." All right. And I think already that's something interesting to dig into about the way that what is beautiful in many senses is beautiful because it changes. Like, to have somebody moving and interacting with a world that is moving forward in time, I mean, it's a necessity, given logic, that that person or thing must also age to have that dimension of change. Like, I'm still me, whether it's, my conception of me ranges from here to here in these 3 dimensions, like, even though all of these things are different. Like, I've found a way to express this in a more impactful way, but basically that the beautiful now is for the price of the past. That there's an exchange that we have for beautiful things. I mean, in particular with people, like, to rob Dorian of his future. I mean, is he supposed to be a sitting boy forever? Especially since it seemed he wanted to leave the studio. Oh, jeez. I clicked the end button and went all the way to the back cover. The little mistakes, the little joys, they all add together. All right. Oh, Lord. All right. And that was all. I occupied myself with the picture for perhaps a quarter of an hour, during which Wilde smoked reflectively, but uttered not one word. He rose, presently, and sauntered to the door, merely nodding as he left the room. Family affairs called me, by and by, from London. I saw no more of either Wilde or Grey. One day, years afterward, this book fell into my hands. I cannot remember where or how, although it startled me to find the germ, sown carelessly in idle talk, expanded by the writer's art into the picture of Dorian Gray. Wilde must have brooded long upon the theme. The radiant youth was, to be sure, the very opposite of Wilde's bad hero. Oh, that's exciting. But such was the author's love of paradox, that this antithesis of character was just the thing to fascinate his poet's mind, from which the following pages grew. Written by Basil Hallward. All right. I was thinking to myself, this guy is really praising Wilde, how he would fascinate them with enlightening talk, and he was brooding, and he sauntered out of the room and all that, and he has a poet's mind. And so I was thinking, did Wilde write the character of Basil Hallward, this so-called artist? I'm going to leave that unknown, whether or not Basil Hallward was a real person. Like, in either case, this adds a layer to the fiction, like, between there and reality, so... and I think that it's a nice perspective to have, like, looking at the author's conception of their own writing from the third-person perspective, you know? I mean, whether or not Basil is Wilde. The actual preface. The artist is the creator of beautiful things. To reveal art and conceal the artist is the art's aim. The critic is he who can translate into another manner or a new material his impression of beautiful things. The highest, as the lowest, form of criticism is a mode of autobiography. For those who didn't see my video really expanding on my understanding and my code for what art is, this is already a lot to dig into. What about artists who create ugly things or challenging things? Or the artist who seeks to draw out melancholy? Like Saturn devouring his sons, not the first thing that popped into my mind. I mean, there are lots of tragic things. Not that tragic things aren't beautiful, but I think that an artist is more someone who is able to... No, an artist is someone who habitually creates art. And so then that begs the question, what is art? And to that, as I've said before, it is the externalization of the self, or as Wilde says here, the highest and lowest form of criticism is an autobiography. I don't think that there can be anything that is not autobiographical, let alone that which we can, let alone that which we create. But the artist is somebody who, pursues that deeply. Even if a tragedy and a particularly sad piece of work is not something that the performer resonates with, say in the case of dance, it is like the imagination that they're trying to embody, in the case of the dancer, with their body. And that's why it can be argued that some chess players or sportsmen are also artists, if they make their sport reflective of some higher ideal, or if they're finding themselves in what sport they play. And I would say that to reveal art and conceal the artist is the art's aim, in the words of Wilde. That's more on the money. It's an externalization. I would say that what makes art very good is if many people can find themselves in what the person brings out, or it touches many people emotionally or technically, or whatever, touches people in any particular way, is what I would say makes great art. So a great artist, a skilled artist, I guess technically would be concealed. Although the more time that you spend with a work or works by single artists, I don't think that it's possible to not get some kind of picture of who they are. And that's not to throw any particular artist of ugly works under the bus. Like I was saying, it doesn't necessarily have to be from the heart. It can be from the mind, or even from the body that the artist creates. Those who find ugly meanings in beautiful things are corrupt without being charming. This is a fault. But what if it's beautiful and ugly? And what about people who find beauty in ugly things? All right. And yeah, I think that finding ugly meanings is... yeah. I was sick all day yesterday. It's gonna wear off by tomorrow, so... you can see ugly things or unpleasant, harmful things and still love them and still, like, enjoy the thing in spite of or because of its ugliness. Every person and thing has its flaws, and in the same way that the radiant youth will grow into different roles, so do each of us, like, invariably. Nothing will stay the same. Like, that really speaks to me. I already read the Communist Manifesto a few times, the other book, about critiquing things. Like, I think that even the greatest of things can and should be critiqued. Because I think that process of delving in and finding ugliness, as Wilde calls it, is an act of love, if not for that piece of art or thing itself, but for the love of all arts. I mean, if you think that finding ugly things is fun, would I say that that is a character flaw? No, not as much as anything else can be a character flaw if taken to the extreme. That's why I was saying about to criticize and to love. Those who find beautiful meanings in beautiful things are the cultivated. For these there is hope. They are the elect whom beautiful things means only beauty. And he did exclude finding beauty in ugly things. But something tells me that that's a large part of what this book is going to be about, since the radiant youth, according to Mr. Hallward, is going to be a bad boy, a grand villain or something, I don't remember. Not a grand villain, a bad something or other. And what does he mean to say that there is hope? Like, is not finding ugliness, is not the art of the process of examining anything, including the self, most importantly, a hopeful process? I would say that change itself is a hopeful process. And apparently this is going to be a book about a picture, something that metaphorically stays the same over the years. I think that's a great thing. I've burned most of my pictures, and I plan to continue doing so, as like an act of setting myself free from my past. The thing to do for me these days is to set myself free from my future. Person's home. Which is easier and harder in a few respects, because, like, we want the hope of our changes right now, our losses right now, to be going somewhere. But then there's that it's uncertain, and I've lost my train of thought. Part 2 will be different, will be better. I want to get through at least chapter 1. Also, it's a very antiquated notion that there are elect people. You have the skill or you don't, and to also use a more antiquated or Western Christian style phrasing, one should have gratitude for all the gifts that one is endowed with, even those which are earned by oneself. And I would say that the distinction isn't important, that from those who have to those who need. Anyway, there is no such thing as a moral or an immoral book. Books are well written or badly written. That is all. I have faith in all of you that I don't need to argue against that, especially since he's going to proceed to make his case here. The 19th century of realism is the rage of Caliban seeing his own face in a glass. I'm guessing that's a reference to a story. The 19th century dislike of romanticism is the rage of Caliban not seeing his own face in a glass. The moral life of man forms part of the subject matter of the artist, but morality of art consists in the perfect use of an imperfect medium. All right. I gotta look up this whole Caliban thing. Learning. Yeah, I was either delve into this book. Caliban, son of the witch Sycorax, is an important character in William Shakespeare's play, The Tempest. I had a feeling it would be Shakespeare. Half human, half monster, his island becomes occupied by Prospero and his daughter Miranda. I'm going to find on this page something about a glass. Caliban. I meant to say glass. God, I said that out loud too. Oh, Lord. Like, there is something about the Zen ideology of, like, the silence and being what you are, but no one can deny the utility of having an internal narrative, and my internal narrative is quite strong. It does get in the way of my pursuit of Zen, but at the same time, I really need it sometimes. All right. The preface of The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde includes 2 sentences referring to Caliban. That's it. Ooh, 1994, Caliban's Hour by Tad Williams, and he's one of my favorite authors, features Caliban presented as a more noble character than the original. I am not reading this whole Wikipedia article. I'm going to assume, like, from what I've read, he's part monster, so to reinterpret these sentences. Century dislike of realism is the rage of Caliban seeing his own face in a glass. So that's Caliban being a half-monster person, wanting to live the romantic fantasy of being better than he is. And the 19th century dislike of romanticism is the rage of Caliban not seeing his own face in a glass, or like a love of catharsis. And I'm wondering if that's a way to delineate different narratives in general. Like, in pursuit of catharsis, or in pursuit of, not reflection. Oh, Lord. I wish I had the words. I wish I had the brain. I gotta blow my nose. Be back shortly. They want to spend their time scanning. I don't mind taking their time from them.
Well, you told me you were working when you gave them information about the substitution.
All right. Yeah, this was a thought that I had recently when I was thinking about two games that I really like, one of which is one of my favorite games just due to nostalgia. The independent game classic, Cave Story, and a new, like, thing that people are touting as one of the greatest games, Disco Elysium. You know what disco is. It's a type of dance that's all about fun and heaven, a Greek conception of heaven, Elysium. And, like, they both have narratives, but it almost seems like the gameplay in one is for the sake of the narrative, and the other one, the narrative, is for the sake of the gameplay. And these are ideas which I think various forms of art can be pushed out into. Like, I might even just flat out borrow what Wilde is saying here. Is this a pro-Caliban seeing his face or an anti-Caliban seeing his face sort of work? And then where would that apply to other works of art in general? Like, especially when you take into mind this was before the, I think that this, yeah, it was before modernism, let alone postmodernism and postmodernism, like looking at the work and how the work influences reality and is influenced by other works, and like deriving meaning through all of this. Like, I'm not sure if this is just a sick thought of mine, sick thought, but can't we just sidestep the whole argument and say that art comes from people? And then we don't need to worry about dividing things up into postmodernism and modernism and all that? Half yes. That was a sick thought because, even though it does all come from people, there are certain artistic trends that happen with postmodern, postmodern, and modern art. And I guess in this case, classical. Like, there is a virtue in pursuing a type of art and, like, meeting that standard. Like, have you met someone who is, like, a punk rocker down to their core? Like, they live the lifestyle, they're going to concerts regularly, they probably play bass or drums, they have the dyed hair, most of their clothes are black, they've got all the piercings, they follow, it's like another thought that I would need to explore more fully, but just the dedication in itself is admirable. A punk rocker might dislike this comparison, but it's very religious-like. All right. Now, I'm going to reread this sentence. The moral life of man performs part of the subject matter of the artist. Yes, that's true. Not all artists, but many. But the morality of art consists in the perfect use of an imperfect medium. I think that that's very well said. I have nothing to add. Like, there is no such thing as a perfect medium. And that's what I was saying before, like, there's a difference between a great artist and just an artist. Everybody does in art. But, like, being able to communicate these ideas and having them be widely applicable is what really matters here. And in terms of an imperfect medium, that's why I have argued from a very young age that video games are the most perfect form of art. Or I should say, most perfect isn't the correct wording, but I think you get where I'm coming from here. That there's music, there is text, like, there is, like, an interactive dance quality depending on how mechanically involved a game is. Like, so many mediums are involved in a video game that it can, but, like, great video games I mean, almost have to be high art. No artist desires to prove anything. Wrong. Even things that are true can be proved. Yes. No artist has ethical sympathies. An ethical sympathy is an artist is an unpardonable mannerism of style. No artist is ever morbid. The artist can express everything. Well, that's just absurd. I'd throw that right back at Wilde. Mr. Wilde, are you not right now describing an ethical artist should be this way? Are you not expressing an ideal artist and how exactly ethical they should be? Just not describing what persuasions they may have? No. And then that's especially when you take things the further route of saying that all things are political, because we live in a society. I mean, it's up to the person how much they want to recognize how political something is or how intentional they may be with it, but it's unavoidable. I shouldn't say unavoidable, it's unquestionable that it's there. No, it's questionable. You know what I'm trying to say, Pete. Thought and language are to the artist instruments of an art. Vice and virtue are to the artist materials for an art. From the point of view of form, the type of all artists is the art of the musician. From the point of view of form, the type of all the arts is the art of the musician. I've called music like the purest touch of emotion before. Although I don't think that Mr. Wilde was considering the perfuming industry. Just in terms of the way that the olfactory sense connects to emotion and memory in people. I think that goes a step farther than what music does. And that's something that video games have not yet been able to emulate besides that. But like I've talked before, I made that video about my plan for leftist unity, which despite now finding out that my future plans have been, lost, in a sense, I still think I'm going to be able to restitch together a lot of my parts of that. And a big part of that is music. To reach people, obviously we need to speak to them intellectually, but if there's no heart to it, that's also not the case. Politics is about power. And if your politics are anti-power, it's going to be kind of hard to compete in a political world that's been shaped by domination for thousands of years. I mean, it's very easy to come to an anti-domination conclusion. That's how we've gotten so far with the democracies that we do have. But every step is going to be hard won, and it's going to come from groups of people rather than people in their groups. It's going to be coming from coalitions. And what unites coalitions more than music? And I think that's an important part of it that I've recognized in the past, that it can't just be one musician and many people. It has to be many musicians and many people being involved in the music, about a grand artists collective that expands beyond just music. By the way, I would recommend that you look into the Buy Nothing program. It's an international program that operates primarily through Facebook, although I have my problems with that company. But it's about the gift economy. It's about, to use a less technical term, it's about giving and receiving from the heart, from those who have to those who need. All right. From the point of view of feeling, the actor's craft is the type. Well, we're drawing a distinction between form and feeling here, and I guess most of what I just said was arguing the opposite, or at least that the point of view of feeling is music. So I'd like to, I admit that doesn't click with me right away. What does he mean by the point of view of feeling? The actor's craft is the type, just because actors say what they're thinking? Not all of the time. I mean, a lot of the joy of many great plays is from the point of view of the onlooker, the audience, is trying to understand the character on screen, rather than immediately relating to them. Which I guess it's a two-way street, how much you can relate to any particular person. My favorite piece of art of all time, I mean, I haven't thought of it since I was going through a phase of like categorizing all of my favorite things to try to like learn about who I was, is Mob Psycho 100. And a big reason for that is, I guess you could call these manga characters actors, how much I related to the villains and how much the main character touched me, and like broke through to these various comic villains. And there is comedy there, but like obviously I was bawling my eyes out. I've not met anyone else who has the same response to Mob Psycho as I do, Mob Psycho 100. Although it is a very skillful piece of art, a lot of people do relate to it in various ways. Highly recommended. I mean, I would even say that the cartoon is not significantly worse than the comic because of all of the different tools that they utilize there. All right. From the point of view of feeling, the actor's craft, that's the subject of the sentence, is the type. So to rephrase, the actor's craft is the type from the point of view of feeling. Hopefully he goes more into detail on this. I'm going to come out and say it, I still don't get it. Like, honestly, from the point of view of form, the type of all the arts is the art of the musician. Like, I related to that primarily on an instinctual level, on a musical level, I would say. While the second, I don't relate to it on an instinctual or intellectual level, so. All art is at once surface and symbol. I mean, not just art, all things, but those who go beneath the surface do so at their peril. Those who read the symbol do so at their peril. Yes, it is dangerous to learn things. Learning things is inherently destructive. The destruction of mystery. The like. Yeah. This is a nasty video, and I am not going to read chapter 1 if this is the quality of insight that I'm bringing to the table. I will publish these 2 prefaces and be done. It is the spectator and not life that art really mirrors. Diversity of opinion about a work of art shows that the work is new, complex, and vital. Well, complexity, yes, but not necessarily new and vital. Like, people can have their... well, no. I guess it depends on your question about vitality. But, yeah. When critics disagree, the artist is in accord with himself. We cannot forgive a man for making a useful thing so long as he does not admire it. I'm going to retouch on these last 3 paragraphs in my next video when I don't have a sick brain. Because he just keeps dropping bombs here. Alright. We can forgive a man for making a useful thing as long as he does not admire it. The only excuse for making a useless thing is that one admires it intensely. All art is quite useless. No, I used to hold this opinion. I used to be anti-art because I thought there is the truth and you say it or you don't. But then I've since realized that poetry is often the more poignant and succinct and powerful way to relate a truth than is prose. Not to say that prose can't also be art. This is prose. I will see you all another time, wishing you peace and joy and love and all the rest.